Coming up on this episode, a debrief of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Was it a good race? What's next for Oliver Bearman and the top teams? Who are they? We'll dig into that in this episode right now.
If he continues this way, he's going to be one of the greats.
Today he saw something amazing.
This is Formula One. This is the sport we love.
Hello everyone and welcome to F1 Briefings in proud partnership with Sports Illustrated. The Saudi Arabian Grand Prix has come to an end and we're now 2 races in. What did we think so far?
Yeah, I thought it was a really good race. Not for everyone. You know, Pierre Gasly, Lance Stroll, not so good. But overall, I thought it was really, really good to watch as a fan. There was a lot happening.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I think, Jeddah is a good track. We always expect a little bit of drama going on. It's tight, it's twisty. And I think because you get such a difference in the first half and the second half of the track, we've got the first half, which is very tight, very, very corner-centric. Then the kind of like the sector 2 and 3 are more about that top speed. And because of that, you get teams choosing one of 2 strategies, or rather one of 2 setups, which we've kind of seen with McLaren and Mercedes. They're like the perfect example of this. And we're going to get into that later on in this video. But yeah, I think it was good. I think the DNF gave us that difference in strategy between teams. It gave us something to think about. And then K-Mag at the back, just causing trouble. What a lad.
That was one of the most interesting parts of the race to watch, I think. Just the strategy where, and I know we're going to talk about it in more detail, but Haas obviously realised Magnussen is out because he's got like a million penalties. So let's just use him to our advantage and get Nico Hülkenberg the point. And for them, it worked perfectly. It was so good.
Yeah, and because we had that almost like DRS train where no one could overtake because everyone was on DRS, it felt like a bit more like before like kind of the 2010s where DRS came in. We had like that more classic racing. Like Alex Albon was just putting in moves on those corners, like actually overtaking on the corner, which I've been wanting it so badly, and we got it. And yeah, we had great racing between the McLarens and the Mercedes, both on very opposite setups, and that meant that one car excelled at one part of the circuit, and then the other car excelled at the other part. And it was just really good. There was constantly something going on. Red Bull obviously way down the road, but I think what carried it for a lot of people was Ollie Bearman making his Formula One debut, and we'll get to Ollie later on in the video. But let's answer the first question: was it a good race? Out of 10, let me know.
Ooh, hard to say because we've only had 2. I'd give that a 8.
8?
Yeah.
That's high. Okay, I was thinking more like a 6 because look. We had, like you said, it's early. It's early, but we did have a difference in strategy. The DNF really kind of made things a bit more interesting. But I think for the majority of fans, people who maybe aren't as nerdy about F1, whether they'll be listening or watching this podcast, I doubt it. But maybe I think a lot of people will turn off when they see Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez and those potent RB20s just like 20 seconds down the road. I think that's the one thing that's still kind of limiting us right now.
That is a fair point. I think as well, I've been tuned after last year to kind
accept
of...
that.
You just... Yeah, I mean, they're so far ahead, and I was basing that on the other battles and the strategies that we saw during the race. I stand by it.
Which were great.
But I understand.
Which were great. Let us know down in the comments, out of 10, how good you thought that race was. And let's move on. Let's move on to the brilliant Oliver Bearman. I think he just did such a great job. He really came in with maturity and with like a level of strategic thought you just didn't expect from an 18 years old. I mean, he was right on the pace from FP3, wasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he had a difficult weekend because he only had... Well, he also had a great weekend, just quickly. Got pole position in Formula 2. Woke up the next day being told he's going to be having his F1 debut. I mean, the weight and pressure on him must have been insane. But then he only had FP3 as a practice session, which isn't representative conditions for qualifying or the race. So that he's already on the back foot anyway. And then that increased kind of his disadvantage, if you want to put it that way. But he took that moment and he ran with it. It was so good to watch. I think a lot of people as well would think, okay, like, let's not overthink it. Let's not go too intense. Let's finish the race, finish my debut. And if I get points, that's amazing. But he, on the first lap, he was just going in for these overtakes and being like aggressive in a good way. And I was just like, first of all, I don't know how his dad watched that race without having some sort of medical problem because it was stressful and we don't know him. Like, that was like heart in mouth situations, but he did such a good job. Yeah,
he did. Like, let's just talk about the placings for right now. FP3, like you said, he came in right on the pace. Then he qualified P11. He almost knocked Hamilton out at Q3. Like, that is impressive, isn't it? Mm. And this is, let's not forget, he's coming into a Formula One car, like you said, completely off the back foot. Huge amounts of pressure. John Elkann, the chairman of Ferraris, there watching on. That's a bit of pressure. That's weight on shoulders, isn't it? And then he finished P7 with 6 points. Like, that's so seriously good. And like you said, he was attacking from the get-go, but it almost felt like every lap he was completing, he was taking something from it. He was driving really analytically and thinking analytically. You know, you could see him learning on from lap to lap, and it was brilliant, really brilliant to watch.
I think the way he was speaking to the race engineers as well was really mature and, like you were saying, analytical, that it just kind of proved his place there. I mean, obviously it's not a permanent thing yet, but he proved that he's mature enough even though he's just 18.
Totally. I was talking to Sam Cooper on the Pondering Papaya podcast earlier today, and we were talking about this, and he said, we were kind of just saying, like, he came in and he looked bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and you're thinking, like you said, this guy's going to take it slow, he's going to enjoy his time, get to know it. But he was attacking straight away, and he made some great, mature moves as well. This is Saudi Arabia, after all. This is a dangerous track. Well done to Ollie Bearman. Seriously, well done. First question then. In that case, did he make a good first impression?
No. Yeah. 100%. I mean, even Fred Vasseur, after the race, he was being asked about Carlos Sainz's recovery and whether he might make it back for Australia. And just within that discussion, he was saying that, you know, if he doesn't, they know they've got such an incredible reserve driver in Ollie Bearman. And look, I mean, he's going to have so many eyes on him now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He 100% gave a good first impression.
Yeah, I agree entirely. I think the thing that gave it away for me is after the race, obviously all the drivers, there's a great camaraderie amongst the drivers, but you could almost see a little bit of intimidation. There was a hint of like, yeah, he was good. Like, he was good, like, worryingly so. And I think Hamilton, you know, obviously he's not quite molding with his Mercedes W15. He was like, yeah, he was good. And there seems to be a bit of sweat on the brow. And, I mean, God, Ferrari must be overjoyed. John Elkann must be thinking, yeah, we are solid. Get Hamilton into a Ferrari. Get Leclerc into a Ferrari that, you know, currently the Ferrari is looking pretty damn good. Ferrari might have a very, very strong team coming up.
I bet the Haas drivers are scared.
I bet they are too. And that leads us on to the second question of this part of the video. What does Ollie's future look like? So first of all, will teams want him? I think there's no doubt that teams are going to want him, just from the points we've already said. Mature, analytical. Like, I think being British, we're very self-deprecating.
Yeah.
We see that in Lando, Norris, and sometimes it comes across as a little negative to maybe American people who have a very different kind of sense of humor. I see a lot of that on social media, like, oh, why is Lando being so negative? It's just like his humor or rude, yeah. But it's just his humor, and like in England, it's very normal. And he came out of the race, and first thing he was like, I didn't go fast enough. It wasn't good enough, and that is such a good aspect to have as a racing driver. He's constantly looking forward. He doesn't feel safe. He doesn't feel safe where he is, which is incredible. Where does he go?
I mean, I think, firstly, it's a very high chance that he will have a full-time F1 seat next year. Also,
I like it.
I think it was great that he had this opportunity this year rather than last year, because there are going to be seats becoming available next year, maybe, with 13 driver contracts up for expiry.
Does that include Stroll?
Well, no
we
one
don't know,
really knows Stroll's contract. I think the understanding is that it's kind of just rolling. And
nice.
it's kind of his decision. I don't really know.
Sorry,
they don't really, no one really knows Stroll. He's the little anomaly of the group. But there's 13 drivers up to lose their contracts.
You're right, with the term expiring.
Expiring,
They're
yeah.
like milk.
Yeah, year-long life milk. But, so actually I think it was a really good timing for him to have this opportunity now. The obvious choice will be Haas, because as well as being a Ferrari reserve driver, he's always also the Haas reserve driver. I feel like I've been saying Haas a lot in this video, and it's now sounding like a funny word.
It is a funny word.
But that will be the obvious choice, especially as both Nico and Magnussen they run out at the end of 24.
Haas got what it takes to give him a car capable of what he is capable of.
No.
I think a lot of people will think that Haas has not got the right potential for Ollie. Ollie is obviously seriously talented. I think if he goes into a Haas, he's going to struggle because, it's kind of like Haas and Williams. Williams obviously has a very kind of obvious progression to it. There's a connection to Mercedes. But Haas, you kind of fall into like the Mick Schumacher deal, don't you? Like, you're seen as lower on the grid. That is just the branding that accompanies Haas. Kind of. I know it's getting better for the team this season, but that is kind of the branding. I feel like Ollie's just too good for them. Yeah,
it's a tricky one because really, I would have thought going into Haas would be, okay, I'll do this for a couple of years, and then the next progression would hopefully be Ferrari, with them having kind of a link. But Ferrari have Charles Leclerc, who they're obviously pushing for their future, and he's in a long-term contract. Hamilton's been brought on a multi-year contract from 2025. They obviously are going to have a very strong driver lineup, as they do now. So then you're kind of pinning your hopes on Hamilton retiring. We don't know when that's going to be. I mean, Fernando's still going strong.
Yeah.
So, and I just think that he should just go straight in for a team that's going to give him a car.
I feel the same way.
Progression. There's the progression with Haas, like you say, is not very clear. I do think Williams would be a good choice.
I do. Actually, that's a very good point. Williams is a very good choice. On the other side of the competition, though, isn't it? It's on the other side of the line. To be honest, I wonder if... I think he put up such a good battle yesterday that I do think he should maybe take aim at a team that's not necessarily connected. Aston Martin would be my choice.
Ooh,
because look,
yes.
I'm thinking Stroll obviously isn't giving enough. He's got enough seat time to be showing better performance than he's currently showing, and he's shown once again with another DNF this weekend that he's not at Fernando Alonso's level. Not many drivers are.
No.
Take that with a pinch of salt. But Ollie Bearman in a seat alongside Fernando, the learning that he could do would be off the charts. He
Yeah.
has this natural talent. He's a hard-working... I'm not saying Stroll isn't, but, you know, there's a reason why he's in that seat. I think Bearman deserves something in the middle. I just don't think he should be at the back of the grid. I think he should go in and learn, get the F1 seat time, and then once he's ready, 3 years or whatever, move into Ferrari and become that potential, I'm going to say, a potential future champion.
Yeah.
I can see it happening. So yeah, well done, Ollie. It was just beautiful to watch, wasn't it? It was just amazing to watch. What else was beautiful to watch? It was the fight between McLaren and Mercedes. I think they struggled, obviously. So let's talk about, first of all, where McLaren is right now. They, like I said, a difficult race. They were kind of forced to split their drivers strategically when the safety car came out. Lando had a difficult start to begin with, even before the safety car. Let's face it, he did a false start. The reason why he wasn't picked up on it was a sensor thing. The sensor didn't go off, and the FIA have confirmed that. Whether it was a broken sensor, which Sky was saying it was, that hasn't been confirmed. I don't know. Whatever, the sensor didn't trigger, which means it was fine. We have no images going on. But also, there we go. There's some McLaren fellas for you. I feel like with that start, he had pressure. That was a pressurized moment for him. And he dropped back behind Piastri. And then he had George Russell on his tail. More pressure from the Mercedes, which had a faster, higher top speed. These McLarens were the slowest cars. I looked at the telemetry. They were the slowest cars on the grid. Lando was the slowest in terms of top speed. And they struggled. But Piastri was able to get in front of Aston Martin, Fernando Alonso, before the DRS was allowed, in the first lap. And this was really important for them because their DRS was so bad that they had to get in front of Alonso. Piastri had to make that gap, which he did. He did really well. And then because there was an issue with the drag that McLaren put on their car, it was a setup issue. They actually came out, there were kind of whispers of they just got the setup wrong. Piastri struggled to do anything with Hamilton. He did eventually get past him, but it was way too late to do anything. And Lando, he did lead the race. It's worth noting that he was one of two race leaders. But when you see the Red Bulls behind you, you shit your pants, don't you?
And they were on fresher tyres. Lando did a great job of nursing those tyres because he was on the side of the strategy with McLaren where he didn't go in for a pit under the safety car, which turned out to not be the right decision. They were pinning their hopes on there maybe being another safety car down the line. But considering that, and he was on the back foot in terms of strategy at that point, I think he did very, very well. I mean, it is hard when you've got the two Red Bulls coming for you in your mirrors and they've got fresh tyres. They're so fast. Like, it was only a matter of time, really, wasn't it? Yeah. Lando was dealt a bad hand. McLaren did the best with what they had. They couldn't double stack because the drivers were simply too close together. So they had to split them. It means at least one of their drivers will have a good day. Oscar, he finished P4. He had a really, really good day. Lando finished, P8? Yeah.
And not such a good day when you look at the day in general. But actually, when you look into his performance, he did a great job with what he had available to him. And the car was battling against him. The strategy obviously didn't go in his favour. And I think they should be applauded. The question is, though, now it's been 2 races. We've had Bahrain, which is a very different track to Saudi Arabia. How is everything looking? What are the top teams, and what do they look like? What kind of order would you put them in? The kind of top 5 right now. Maybe top 4 is an easier answer.
I mean, obviously Red Bull, Ferrari, McLaren. I'm going to say Mercedes as my fourth, based on, I think it's very close with Aston Martin, but the driver lineup is more consistent in Mercedes than it is Aston.
I agree. I would say the same. Red Bull, they already drove to Australia. They just drove the RB20.
I was just going to say that. You stole my joke.
Haha! Yeah, they're there.
Yeah.
They're way down the road. And, they've got a new concept. We know that upgrades are coming, and it's rumoured that these upgrades are substantial. The performance ceiling of the RB20 is going to be high. So I don't think anyone, once again, is gonna bring the battle to them, bring the fight to them at all this season. Adrian Newey and his team are just too good. And then I do think you're right. Ferrari is a solid second. We saw that in Saudi Arabia, definitely. And we saw that in Bahrain. The Ferraris obviously had some reliability issues, and even then did a great job. Regardless, Carlos Sainz got on the podium. And, I know we've been saying that McLaren's Oscar Piastri almost got a podium. He would have been really good had the Ferraris not been there, and that's kind of what we had. Carlos Sainz wasn't there. I think he would have been pushed down a notch if Sainz was in the car. But yeah, I think McLaren is like a solid P3 in the constructors right now. You can tell that Mercedes aren't quite understanding where they are right now. Once again, we have a car that they don't quite understand. It's not reacting how they want it to react. But you are right, the driver lineup is very, very good. And that's how I believe they are staying in front of Aston Martin, who have dropped back a little bit.
Yeah, I think as well between McLaren and Mercedes is that for the most part, the issues in Saudi Arabia for McLaren were mainly strategy. I know obviously top speed as well, but mainly strategy, whereas Mercedes, they're still not gelling with the car and they're still not happy with it. I mean, Hamilton is very clearly not happy with the car still. So that it just seems like there's more issues there that need to be sorted out, whereas McLaren, it was a gamble that didn't quite pay off.
It was really their only choice.
Yeah, but it was more a strategy issue than a car issue.
I agree. It as Bruce Almighty would say, it is how the cookie crumbles.
That shows your age. I'm not sure Ollie Bearman would get that joke.
Fun fact for you, Ollie Bearman was born after Michael Schumacher got all 7 of his championships. That's horrible, isn't it? He's 11 years younger than me.
Yeah.
And so much more successful. So much more good looking. Damn it. He's a good looking chap, isn't he? He works in red. Now McLaren though, they are P3. Can they catch Ferrari? Can they catch Red Bull?
Red Bull, no. I think right now, unless something crazy happens with these upgrades that are coming to Red Bull, if Adrian Newey has gone like really out there and it's just like, let's just give it a go.
Zero pod.
Let's just remove the rear wing and see what happens. But like, really, I think it's very hard to see if someone's going to catch up with Red Bull. So they're kind of doing their own thing right now. Ferrari, I still am not seeing it. I think they will get P2 in the constructors this year. I don't know. I feel like in comparison to the last couple of years, the team as well, with like the strategies, like they're not coming on the radios being like, let's do strategy.
Question.
What do you want for dinner? Like, there just seems to be more. They are more cohesive.
Yeah.
And it's like a more well-oiled machine.
It is. I think Fred Vasseur has done such an incredible job.
Yeah.
He's really turned things around, and it's like he's just pulling the best people, isn't he? He's pulling really good people. I mean, like you saw, he's got Lewis Hamilton. There's something up his sleeve that Hamilton knows and no one else doesn't know. And we've seen Ferrari's developing. They were pretty good at the end of last season, and now they are a solid second. Hopefully the development for them continues. But I agree. I don't think anyone's going to catch Red Bull.
Yeah. I think as well with Ferrari is that they've obviously got a very, very strong driver lineup. Charles is, I think he's been great for a long time, but he's like really coming into it a bit more now, making less mistakes than he was before. And Carlos, he is fighting for a seat next year, so he's putting his everything into securing another contract for next year, and he is not gonna, hopefully, unless he puts too much pressure on himself, I don't think he's gonna let himself make any mistakes. And he also is very good with his strategy.
Yeah.
So I think they will be difficult to catch up with.
I was going to say exactly the same thing. I think Carlos Sainz, he is a billboard at the moment, isn't he? He's got to advertise himself. He's promoting himself to the 9 other teams, and maybe 10. And because of that, he's going to be going for it. You know, I know Leclerc had more of an issue in Bahrain than Carlos, but Carlos put in some great racing, and he's going to continue to do that. The one downside, though, if that does happen, is there going to be friction between the two drivers who are wanting to do anything to prove themselves? That could be their undoing, and that could allow Oscar Piastri, Lando Norris of McLaren, who are very friendly, they work very well together, to go past them.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen that in the past with other teams, that sometimes their biggest downfall is their own battles within the team and the teammates. But I also feel like Carlos and Charles have had on-track battles before. Like, sometimes they've been the best battles of a race. Like Bahrain, that was my highlight, really, them battling it out. And I love that Fred Vasseur lets them just carry on. He trusts them to be clean with their racing. So I don't think he'd have that trust if he didn't think that they were just going to be stupid and crash into each other. But, I mean, things could change, I suppose.
I think it is well-placed trust. They are both very good drivers. They're both very clean drivers. Charles can get a little emotional sometimes if things don't go his way.
Can't we all?
Yeah, true. But, yeah, I think you're entirely right. The one reason I bring this up is McLaren have stolen 2 quite big people from the teams in front of them, Ferrari and Red Bull. They've stolen Rob Marshall from Red Bull. He started at the beginning of this year in January, and he could bring Red Bull ideas with him. He could bring a bit of spice from the RB19, from the RB... Well, he's on garden leave, so not the RB20, but, you know, there could be technology that Red Bull are currently integrating into their car, and this could be used on the McLaren. And this is the same thing with David Sanchez from Ferrari. He, again, started at the beginning of this year, and maybe he could bring some of the Ferrari goodness over as well. And this is huge. It's called brain drain from other teams. And McLaren is really focusing. They've got this trifecta of people, haven't they? Rob Marshall, David Sanchez, and Peter Prodrimo. They have this trifecta of engineering goodness. And that is obviously where the focus is going. And we saw last year, their development is incredible. You know, if a team can develop, it's going to be McLaren. Yeah. They are like the Aston Martin of this year, aren't they? So I think if anyone's going to do it, I don't think they're going to catch Red Bull, but if anyone is going to do it, I think it's going to be McLaren for those reasons. Like we've said, the performance ceiling on the RB20 is far too high. Adrian Newey and his team, they have just kind of, the stars have aligned. They just seem to be working so well with this ground effect era. I don't think we're going to see them being caught. Let's round off this video. Mm-hmm. And I have a final question. What does this Red Bull dominance mean for F1 this season specifically?
Oof. Just a
inner Charles Leclerc.
Honestly, I think it's going to be very similar to last year. And I think that it will put, and this is how I felt in 2023 as well, is that it put more importance on the circuits, because we're not going to get those, how it's looking right now, we're not going to get those battles at the front of the grid. So you need to have excitement elsewhere. And there's been a lot of complaints and criticisms from fans previously like last year, that it was getting a bit boring because it is predictable. You know that Max is going to, regardless of where he comes in free practice, he's going to probably take pole position and then go on to win the race because they are just so much further ahead than everybody else. So that is the problem with having a 24 race calendar, is how do you keep it exciting? And when one team is so far further ahead than everybody else, it makes that even harder. So I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know either, to be honest. I think, like we said at the beginning, I think the fact that Red Bull are so far ahead means that the normal person, the normal kind of person who watches a load of sports and F1 is just an option of many, people are going to turn off. And the issue is that's going to be that's going to be the bulk of people watching F1, isn't it? So I think you're entirely right. Having interesting tracks will bring that interest to Formula One. But I don't know. I feel like it's just an issue. Plus the fact that we're seeing more kind of dirty air symptoms. I'm looking forward to the regulations changing in 2026. Hopefully everyone once again kind of starts from a similar level. I want to ask you this question. Have the regulations worked? No. Bearing in mind, we're a few years into the cost cap and things take longer than that in F1.
Yeah, I think so far not exactly the way that they wanted them to. The whole point of the cost cap was to level the playing field. And yes, the top teams can't spend triple the amount that the other teams are spending. So in some ways it's worked, but the whole point was to make racing more exciting and bring the field closer together. And that clearly has not happened because Max often finishes 20 seconds ahead of everyone, and even shortening the DRS, bringing it in after one lap instead of two, he's already once he's got around that first corner and he's clear and he's still got his lead, he's off, and a lot of the time he's out of DRS by the end of lap one, and then he's just off. So no, not really.
Yeah, no, I would agree. We are early into this cost cap. We've talked about this before. We're only a few years in. Like I said, F1 is a long game, isn't it? It's not judged within a season. It's judged over a number of years. But you are right. The cost cap, the new regulations haven't quite brought about the race for the lead as everyone wanted. But it is just worth saying, we're not stupid people. We know F1 has been like this for a long time. There's always eras. We have it with Michael Schumacher. We have it with Hamilton. I think the one issue is that, not issue, but the one thing that has made this a bit more heavy going is the fact that Perez can't launch an attack on Verstappen. Verstappen and his car are just one, and they're doing incredible things. I
think as well, the part of the reason why it's getting more criticism now than previous eras where a team has dominated is that is what the cost cap was supposed to stop or reduce. Yeah. And I think that is why there's more criticism towards it now.
Plus, F1 has never been so social media centric.
Yeah.
And that's where all this comes from, isn't it? Exactly.
Criticism and comment, doesn't it?
Yeah. On that note, thank you so much for watching. Let us know in the comments, because of this whole dominance from Red Bull, are you tempted to turn it off? Let me know. Yes or no in the comments. Let me know while you're down there. Please like, please subscribe. And if you want to know exactly when we've uploaded a video at that point in time, what can they do?
Click the notification bell.
You can click that notification bell. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next video.